Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. A Mercedes 1-2 in free practice 2 in Suzuka. Unrepresentative conditions most certainly, but Lewis Hamilton has certainly taken some positive signs away, and Christian Horner seems somewhat concerned about the Mercedes pace this weekend. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Latifi being Latifi at the start of the session. If you guys didn't see this earlier, this is the chicane later on after 1:30 going into here. Latifi turns down the kind of I don't exactly know what the purpose of this road is, but he just misses the turn and then he says, "Oh, my car," or something like that. And yeah, just, go Tifi, being the legend that he is. Now, this I thought was crazy. I was like, hang on a second, is this a legitimate account? Fabrizio Romano, more than likely known from you guys for his football reporting, actually delves into the world of Formula 1, saying he understands Gasly will join Alpine for next season. The contract is signed. It's an official here we go from Fabrizio Romano, saying, Gasly is good to go to Alpine. So I believe we expect the announcements in the coming hours. I think he said in the early hours of the morning, UK time, there's going to be an announcement like this. If you guys are in Asia or in Japan, I think it's going to be early morning. And if you're in the US, it may be later this evening. But yeah, we'll see on that one. But that also means that AlphaTauri are going to get Nick De Vries, is the present understanding. Even Alpine replied to this, actually, which I thought was kind of funny as well. So yes, Gasly to Alpine seems like a done deal. If Fabrizio's giving it the here we go, that's more than likely the case. Let's talk about practice then in Suzuka. First practice was a bit of a mess. In fairness, I was asleep for this. But Alonso topped the timesheets after FP1. It was a weird one because there was someone wet, someone new into, someone like a different type of tyres. Some were really pushing, some weren't giving it too much of an issue. Mercedes were like P13, P18 or something. And it was, Alonso and the two Ferraris right up top in the first practice session. But the second practice session was probably slightly more representative, you could argue. But before the second session got underway, right after the checkered flag of the first free practice session, Mick Schumacher aquaplanes, bins it in the wall, breaks his car, and this was maybe unnecessary for Mick Schumacher, and it's also probably the worst possible time for this to happen. They are weighing up his future. Yes, it's been quite some time since Mick was binning it all the time, especially back in Monaco, for example, but this was not a good time to do it, especially at the end of free practice 1. The team tried to get his car fixed in time, wasn't possible, so yes, more damage, more cost to the team, and that's not going to help his cause. Is that the final nail in the coffin of Mick's career with, firstly with Haas, but also in Formula 1? Who knows? Because we believe if Mick does get booted out of Haas, which he might do, and maybe more likely as a result of this incident. Now, in fairness, Günther Steiner was not so happy about it, right? They could bring in Hülkenberg. I think they've also said, Haas, that they're pretty much done with rookie drivers. They prefer, newer drivers to the scene. Of course, Schumacher not really a rookie, but they bring in Hülkenberg and Magnussen. It's kind of like a, at least a solid experience pairing between them. And if Mick Schumacher is booted out, probably Williams is the only team that might get him, but they might try and get Logan Sargent. So it's a strange situation, but not a good day for Mick Schumacher and his prospects next season. Free practice 2 was led by George Russell, then Lewis Hamilton, then Max Verstappen in third. Perez was fourth. We'll see the numbers here in a second. So Mercedes come out of nowhere, really, in a wet session to top the timesheets and were setting purple sectors all over the shop. They were about 8/10 up on Verstappen. Now, there are many reasons behind why the gaps are rather big. First of all, Mercedes were pretty much the only team, or one of the only teams, using many different tyre sets. I'm pretty sure Verstappen and Perez used one set of inters for the entire practice running that they did, which, the idea is to save some fresh rubber, potentially for the race. Tomorrow, we believe, at least qualifying on Saturday, will be in the dry. The race is about 50% chance, it seems, of being wet. There might be some rain, it might not be. It would be a crazy exciting race. Hopefully we get some rain on lap 30 or something. That would be very spicy. But the teams want to save some fresh tyres, potentially for a wet Sunday. Mercedes didn't do that. They had other ideas. Of course, they've got good reasons for doing what they decided to do, but it did mean they put in a fair few laps on new inters, which meant that they could especially gain some advantages really there in Sector 1 and probably pull out a bit of an advantage. So I think some of these numbers are slightly biased in Mercedes' favour, but at the same time, you've got to consider that, especially in wet conditions, Mercedes have generally struggled all year. Even back in Canada, they had a pretty tough time in qualifying there, despite looking decent in the dry. Then in Silverstone, of course, wet qualifying didn't help them either. Singapore most recently was not pretty at all. Quali was okay for Hamilton, but then the race, it wasn't good. The pace was kind of not where they needed to be, and largely that's been because they can't seem to, as they describe it, switch the tyres on in the cold conditions. They can't seem to quite get the tyres up to temperature to give them the grip that they need. They struggle to do that in in the dry, let alone in the wet. Now, either they've figured something out with this car, or they've tried something now that they can actually achieve this, because seemingly right here they were able to do that, and then we can actually see it was Perez P4, but the Ferraris were kind of struggling. Carlos Sainz P6, Leclerc down in P11. I believe he was just on an old set of tyres that were really struggling, so difficult to say where the Ferraris would or should be, but interesting nonetheless, and in fairness to Kevin Magnussen up in 5th, both McLarens having a hard time as well. So definitely interesting to see compared to Mercedes' usual pace, especially in wet conditions, them to be P1, P2. Now, Russell and of course others are going to say, you know what, it's not representative, but you of course, look, Mercedes always have the kind of sandbag thing in the back of their pocket whenever they are actually sandbagging. Of course, not really the case this season, but in the past, whenever they've been very good, but maybe don't want to show it, they'll always say stuff like this. Sooner rather than later, they will actually be good, and they say that they're not so good. We'll see if that's this weekend. Maybe it won't be, because there's been many times this season where Russell and Hamilton have had a lot of hope about the performance of their car, and then it hasn't really transpired come the race. And of course, the dry conditions tomorrow are maybe very different indeed. But they got their car set up working well today, but it's going to be difficult for all the teams to convert that performance in the wet to performance in the dry tomorrow for qualifying, which is, pretty critical, of course, for the race. Not so easy to overtake here around Suzuka. So Russell, seemingly kind of confident. Actually, Mercedes explains the reason why they use so many sets of tyres, just to get more information, but also to scrub some of those sets of inters. We talked about this at the start of the Singapore Grand Prix, where Hamilton wanted a set of scrubbed inters rather than brand new. Now, the brand new inters with all the tread on them, they give you the best drive off the line, but they can be a bit tricky to get into the right working window. A scrubbed set of inters with a bit of graining or bit of tread taken off them can be a bit easier on the first few laps of the race in terms of consistency. So there's that now option that Mercedes will have in terms of having new sets of inters, and obviously a couple of laps worth of scrubbing is not really worth that much in terms of tyre life, so it may, if anything, be a slight advantage come for the rest of the weekend, especially going to Sunday if they do need inters. As they said, to get the best understanding of how to operate the car, they use many sets of tyres. The tyres degrade, you need to learn across multiple sets, and saying that they've only put significant mileage on one set, the other sets were just a scrub run, so won't make any difference if we need them in the race. So I know that Horner was saying that, yeah, that's probably going to mean that they had quite an advantage in this session compared to where the Red Bulls were, but in terms of actual race performance, might not make too much difference not having as many sets of new inters as they might have done. And even Christian Horner went on to say, yeah, Mercedes do seem to be in the mix. He said this before, hasn't always transpired in the race, but in terms of, what Suzuka should be like theoretically for the Mercedes, it should be a pretty good track for them. Added on to the fact that they seem to be able to get their tyres working rather well already in the wet, it's definitely giving the drivers some confidence they can make this work for the rest of the weekend. But of course, with just one practice session tomorrow morning in the dry, it's very difficult to get the setup ready to go, and whoever does that the quickest will probably be the team that comes out on top in qualifying. And as I say, quali is key. If Hamilton and Russell start P5, P6, they're not going to be able to win the race unless something miraculous happens. This is what Hamilton has to say on the matter, saying, it's been a bit of a dull day, wet and windy most certainly, but also saying that he can take some positives away from the fact that they were able to get their tyres working.
Lewis, P2 in FP2. I know not entirely representative given the conditions, but how would you sum up your Friday?
It's been pretty dull today. It's just grey and wet. We got through a bit of running, but it was, I think it's going to be dry for the rest of the weekend. So, it's been okay. It's been very chill.
Can you take anything from the data or anything you learned from track today?
There's always things to be taken from it, yeah. So some of the stuff with setup, some of the stuff with tyre wear, tyre temperatures, and the balance that we're moving around, trying between sessions. So there's definitely things to take from it, and there is data on downforce loads and what wing level everyone else is on. So. And on the positive side, we were able to switch our tyres on today, so we didn't look slow. So that's good.
Also admitting, of course, here, Hamilton, that, yes, we got through a bit of running. It's, safe to say that in the dry, it's going to be different. The Ferraris and Red Bulls should be quick and up there in the running. But, he has no idea what actually is going to happen because you haven't really seen it in those conditions. Ferrari have been trying all sorts as well. They tried out new wings and they changed the wings around, put the new floor on both cars. So, Ferrari don't seem to really be too clear on what they're going to do for this weekend, despite theoretically they should be good around here as well. But their advantage on these type of circuits is the season has progressed, especially to Red Bull, has pretty much gone away. He goes on to say that he hopes that they're fast, but that's a hope that he has every single week and almost always hasn't been the case so far this season. But saying that, like, look, on the positive side, they were able to switch the tyres on. We didn't look slow, so that's good. So that's the thing sometimes that Hamilton has felt, that he feels like the car's okay and is driving quite well, but yet the lap times are just so far off the Red Bulls because the tyres aren't quite right. So maybe that's going to be a difference maker for Mercedes this weekend. Just a quick word here on Ferrari and what they're planning to do, because as Charles says, FP2, no tyres left, says overall quite a good day. The car was okay, feeling good, need to put everything together for tomorrow, and saying that FP2 was very difficult because the tyres were completely done, but a positive Friday for tomorrow. Of course, conditions very different, so really difficult to call what is going to happen in qualifying. This time tomorrow, qualifying will be long over, but yeah, if teams want to win around here, they're going to have to have a good qualifying performance. As George Russell says, they've got good pace probably come Sunday, but if they're in position to actually challenge for the win is largely going to depend on their qualifying performance on Saturday. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Just wanted to mention this actually, that this weekend's Red Bull can tie the longest ever streak of top 2 finishes in, well, Formula 1 history. Williams in 1993-94, Mercedes in 2014-2015. I think except for the Spanish Grand Prix where they took each other out, their streak would have gone up quite significantly, maybe to like 28 or something here, Mercedes. And also Red Bull, if they didn't lose in Bahrain, they would have had a streak up to 25, I believe, after the results of the end of last season. So Red Bull almost could have broken it apart from Bahrain, the first race of the season. But since then, they've gone 16 races in a row, Red Bull, with a top 2 finish. And at this weekend, they can tie the record and potentially extend that quite significantly. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.